In Wembley's Empire Pool, the finals of the British Table Tennis Championships. England's Victor Barner and the bespectacled American Marty Reisman clash in the men's final. And what a battle it turns out to be.
Feeling of the ball hitting the racket, there was almost a sensuous kind of feeling that flowed from the tip of my finger up my arm, and right to, my cerebellum, and it was a kind of a sensuous feeling that I enjoyed very much. I was very confident. I always was very confident. I never went into a match where I felt I was the underdog. Never once in my entire career. I felt I was surely.
You meditate while you're hitting the ball. You get into what is called an alpha kind of rhythm, where you go, beyond the normal kind of contemplation. You go into a kind of dream world, and when you're in that dream world, you can hit anything.
I used to be very keen on chess when I was a little boy and did puzzles too, lots of puzzles. One of the things I loved about table tennis once I started to play at home and then beyond was it was like that in some kind of way. It was like sporting chess. It was a sport at which you could excel without being athletic.
Ping pong, ping pong ping, ping pong ping, hear me sing my ping pong song. Ping pong and pong ping, it's an easy, nice and easy song to sing. Ping pong.
I think it's certainly true that one of the charms of table tennis is it is democratic. It's very easy to play, it's cheap to get the equipment. And so everyone can relate to somebody playing table tennis. And so a lot of politicians have been photographed playing table tennis, and I've played with a few of them.
Do you think you know the song? Well, you knew it all along. Okay now, you say now, it's just a ping and then a pong.
Michael Howard, former Conservative Party leader, enjoys it. Norman Lamont is another very keen table tennis player. Lord Skidelsky, the historian and economist. But there is no doubt that it has a resonance across politics and culture.
Do you know how it goes, my ping pong?
Let me pass you.
Mao himself was a very good player, as all the Chinese leaders were. I mean, it was during the Long March, for example, in the 30s, one of the simplest forms and only forms of recreation they had was ping pong, because they could take any table and play, even when they were on the run. So it was a great sport when you're in hiding. I wonder if Robin Hood played table tennis.
Shooting from this angle, our cameraman is able to show you, despite the smoke from nearly 10,000 cigars and cigarettes, how the masters play the game that looks so easy but is so difficult. How they make the ball twist and spin and swerve in the air. In fact, do everything except a rumba. The score in the fifth game goes to 18-all before Barner pulls ahead, and a superb shot makes him world champion again.
What we see here is an evolution of the table tennis bat, from the earliest bats in the 1890s all the way up to modern bats. Lawn tennis proved to be very popular in the 1880s, and game makers were quick to try to piggyback off lawn tennis success. And so they tried a variety of experiments of indoor versions of lawn tennis. The most popular of the old rackets was this sheepskin vellum drum racket with the long handle. And each of these had a slightly different pitch, and so the sound was slightly like a drum. And that suggested the name ping pong.
Table tennis, ping pong, gossamer. Think of it, gossamer. A good name for a condom, what? You won't even know you're wearing it. Whiff-waff was another one they tried, meaning what? Something insubstantial, piffling, neither here nor there, like swatting at flies. You won't even know you're playing it. Why didn't they just call it that? Something piffling, and have done. The men played in long trousers, and maybe I've invented this, but I don't think I have cardigans. I see it as and ties. I see it as a cardigan and tie game, and I think that's why the game was popular early on, because people could be fully dressed when playing it. It was truly a parlour game. The over athleticism of the game, to my mind, spoiled it a bit.
They could hardly be expected to grovel on the floor chasing the ball. So when a ball fell to the floor, as it inevitably would do, they had these ball pickup devices that simply picked the ball up. And there were many, many different patents for these.
Good afternoon, campers, and welcome to your record request programme from Radio Butlin.
Everybody played table tennis, of all ages and of all classes. You didn't need a lot of money to play. Young and old would play together. I remember some of the most humiliating experiences I had was to come across old geezers, really, who did keep their jackets on, and did keep their cardigans on, and did keep their ties on, and were very good players by virtue of being canny. So they would barely move at the table. They'd just kind of reach a bat out and they'd half volley and block. And it was very exasperating to be done over by somebody who looks as though he's, about to pass out at the table.
My two sports were football and table tennis. And I was one of thousands of kids playing table tennis.
It's a simple push, Pete, right? Push!
The Open champs in England were absolutely marvellous. Eastern Open, Manchester Open, Lancashire Open, and it was a real passion.
Table tennis was very entertaining then, there's no question. And of course, not as many football matches about. There was always very, very enthusiastic crowds, and I mean, they would come down in coach loads from Manchester, from Birmingham, and that if we were playing at Wembley or anywhere like that. I won the 1951 World Championships with that bat. Yeah, it's seen better days now. The top players, we were very friendly. After a big event like that, there'd be a big party. In 1951, the Rowe twins won the doubles, and that was terrific. That was a big event for them as well, and they had a drink or two as well. The top teams, without doubt, were Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania. And the top players in that day, I mean, were were Richard Bergman, of course, and Victor Barner. He transformed the parlour game into the great sport it is today.
He handed me his bat, a Victor Barner, nipple brown rubber pimples, medium fast, smooth, stubby wooden handle with no tape or strapping around it. It slid into my grip like the hand of an old friend. In an earlier life, I must have played with a Victor Barner. In an earlier life, could I have been Victor Barner? They played with simple plywood bat with rubber pimples, so you could hear the ball, and you would partly read what the opponent was doing by the sound his bat made. So you had the plick plock of it. It was nice. It reminded me of high heels.
The really, really thrilling personality was to see Richard Bergman defending the ball against Vanya of Czechoslovakia, who was a fantastic Darth Vader figure with dark hair, smashing forehand drive after small-hand drive, dropping a drop shot here, Bergman coming in, getting it.
They were the European players. They were, when I always felt of them, they were philosophers, psychologists, men of science and wit and learning. It was Austrian wit versus Czech wit. It was cerebral, it was sly. You won as by an act of intelligence. You did not win as by an act of technology.
Vanya, playing in a hairnet, is the winner in 3 straight games.
I loved ping pong most when I felt the fight go out of my opponent. You can hear it sometimes, hear their self-belief crack, hear their heart break, like a twig snapping in a moon-frozen forest. Nothing hollows out a player more than when you soak up everything he's got.
Table tennis is a philosophical game. It's also a very polite game. When the ball hits the net, you hold up your hand to say, "Excuse me," if the ball goes over the net. On the other hand, it's a kind of strange battle that occurs usually between an offensive player and a defensive player. That was the best kind of strategy. And the volley could be, there was some, in one period there was one volley that went on for 2 hours, it was endless.
A good chess player could probably see, let's say, 2 or 3 moves ahead of the one he's making. A better chess player could probably see 5 or 6 moves ahead. When you play table tennis, you have to be able to see moves ahead of the stroke that you're playing. Stroke for stroke, you may not be as good as your opponent, but you may be able to outthink him.
There is something about the astuteness of it and the reading of character and what I've described as the wit of the game. It's a fast-talking game in a way that other athletic pursuits are not. You're not running around so much that you haven't got time to use your mind, and I think that's one of the things that writers like about it.
This is my 70th year of ping pong playing. I started at the age of 10 on the dining room table. The focal point of my home is the ping pong room. I play a steady, defensive, zen-like game. No matter how important or glamorous my opponent may be, I never let him or her distract me.
People talk about Henry Miller as a player, and all of life for him was a kind of struggle, and it was exemplified in table tennis, because you had an instant opponent, you had to read the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent, and then you set out to destroy him. So you were polite. It was a kind of polite massacre.
Time stood still for me as I played, working out strategies designed to tie my opponent into a knot. I was a master of time, space, and motion in my own intensely private universe.
What was wonderful about Marty Reisman, apart from his having the most wonderful game, was that he was a hustler. He brought to table tennis a whole a way of being that was foreign to table tennis.
He's a great player, in my opinion, who was led slightly astray by the whole aura or romance of the money match. And he should have been, and was, in my opinion, in his own time, the very best player in the world.
Yeah. Marty Reisman. I was sort of like gunfighter in the Old West. People would come in from out of town to challenge me, and match would be played for hundreds of dollars. You can't play table tennis without money. That's my way of thinking anyway.
Wait a minute. Nothing personal, I hope.
If I hadn't played for money, I wouldn't have been the world-class player that I am. Because in a fun game, you can do all sorts of wild things out there, and you think, hey, I'm playing successful table tennis. But when money is on the line, you better think twice about what you're going to do out there if you want to succeed, if you want to walk away with the money. According to my birth certificate, I am Baby Reisman, born in 1930 in Aquarius on the Lower East Side in New York City. Dr. Kupperman charged my dad $30 for my delivery, but was never paid in full. The stock market had collapsed 4 months previously, and times got tough. Eventually named Marty, I grew up in a slum during the Great Depression. Craps and poker had a stranglehold on my dad, so it was feast or famine depending on the roll of the dice in a backyard, basement, or rooftop, as my dad bucked heads with Lady Luck. I was a member of the science club. I was very much interested in microscopy and science, and I thought I would grow up to be a doctor. But when I discovered that I had a skill for playing table tennis, I immediately abandoned that and went into something I thought was more appropriate for me. Very quickly, I started beating everybody out of their nickels, dimes, and quarters. And I sought out where the good players played, and I found out there was a place uptown called Lawrence's. Lawrence's formerly had been a speakeasy owned by big gangster Legs Diamond.
So you wanted a showdown, huh? Well, you're gonna get it. Get back up against that wall.
Lawrence's ping pong parlor was located on the second floor of a 3-story building on Broadway and 54th Street. The place had creaky steps, a tin ceiling, pool room lights that lit the tables, a splintered wooden playing floor, and a cheap paint job. It was a smoke-filled establishment with ventilation that forced you to suck for wind in order to stay alive. There were 12 tables, and table 7 was where the big action always took place, behind which were the several machine gun bullet holes reputedly made when Mr. Diamond was shot at, and his magic legs danced him out of harm's way. I remember playing my first match, and Lawrence, who was a West Indian gentleman from Barbados, introduced me to the audience and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, a new star looms on the horizon. Let's welcome Marty Reisman."
Hey, Marty.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you.
Play a little bit?
Yeah, why not? Sure. 10 pounds a game?
Absolutely.
I was very confident. I always was very confident. I never went into a match where I felt I was the underdog. Never once in my entire career. Even when I was an upstart, when I started to play table tennis. As a matter of fact, I saw Dick Miles play for the first time. And I walked out and I said, "Hey, mister, would you hit a few shots with me?" I didn't realize it wasn't proper protocol to walk up to a, champion and say, ask him to hit a few shots with me. He says, "Not now, kid." And I walked back to sit down. I said to somebody, "Who was that guy?" I said, "Oh, that's Dick Miles. He's one of the best players in America." I thought to myself, a little practice, I could beat him.
Dick Miles was probably the most intellectual player of all time. He really studied the game in every way, studied every bounce. He really mastered the table. He was a kind of Superman with a kind of X-ray vision that could see every element of the game.
I started playing in those tournaments when I was about almost 13 years old. And in the early days, Miles was giving me 10 points, and within 2 years, we were playing just about even up. So these were hard, bitter fought matches, that raised the level of my game as well as Miles's game. Miles was noted for having a fantastic defense, and by playing against that defense, I learned to play an attacking game. That was my style. And eventually, worldwide, my reputation was that I had developed the hardest forehand drive in the world. It sounds like braggadocio, and that's so unlike
So unlike you.
He's known me all these years as being very modest.
Right.
All right.
He once said to me, "Enough about my game. What do you think of my forehand?"
In Wembley's Empire Pool, the finals of the British Table Tennis Championships.
The English Championship is considered second in importance to the World Tournament, and I was going in full of confidence because I thought I knew I was one of the best players in the world.
There was no one better than Marty in Marty's eyes, which is good for him, So he was sure that when he went on the table, he was confident he would win. Although he could lose very badly, but in Marty's eyes, that was an off day.
We were the brash Americans who came over there. We were very cocky, because I thought I was as good as the best, and I suppose Miles did too.
They brought that extra American dimension. They were brasher, they were more confident, they believed in themselves more. They just did that American thing, they breathed a freer, cleaner air, and they really they truly woke the game up.
They brought, a certain showmanship. The English are kind of diffident. Diffidence is not a word you would use about Marty Riesman. It's a classic match in the sense it was febrile youth against mature middle age, because Barner was,
Congratulations to a gallant winner.
Well, I was very elated to have won that the English Championship because my reputation spread throughout the world. I was invited to India, I was invited to Australia, New Zealand, and the Orient, and to Europe and so forth. So that immediately established me as one of the top players in the world, officially, that is. I felt I was surely destined to win a world championship.
Held for the first time in India, the 19th World Table Tennis Championships opened in Bombay with a parade of the competitors. Teams from 26 countries, the flower of youth from the East and the West, rallied under one international banner.
As the tournament started, there were all sorts of rumors about the Japanese The Japanese had invented a new kind of racket, invented by a Japanese scientist. They were practicing in secret behind closed doors. Nobody was allowed to watch them play. And so, of course, we had a kind of the American cockiness. The Europeans felt the same way about it. We just discounted the Japanese. There's nobody. We reign supreme in table tennis. This is our game. We developed it. We have the games. I mean, what chance do, the Japanese or the players from Hong Kong have against us?
Some in Bombay, the 19th World Table Tennis Championships reached the final stage.
Nobody in the stadium watching the event, from the moment he unsheathed the racket from his case, realized Hiroji Sato was about to revolutionize the game and for all time transform table tennis into a totally different sport.
Sato was the worst player on the Japanese team. As a matter of fact, people were wondering why he was knock-kneed. I mean, he looked like he came from outer space.
Sato walked out to the table to play against Richard Bergman, and I'll never forget, he had a little case under his arm. Took out the case, unzipped it, and took out a racket that has about an inch of foam or a half inch of foam on either side. And he started at a few shots across the net, and we couldn't hear the ball.
And the sponge bats came, these thick sponge bats in 1952, and this is what the players heard. Nothing.
The traditional player couldn't play against the sponge bat because he couldn't hear the sound of the ball. It wasn't only the mystery of where the ball was going, they couldn't rely on that usual tool of sound. And I can't, express that enough, that the sound, we've had blind referees who could determine, great shot on table 23 without even seeing the ball.
Nobody really understood what was happening, the amount of spin, because the ball reversed itself. It was a very complicated kind of thing. The response off the racket with the sponge is entirely different from the pimpled rubber.
It's a kind of catapult. Whatever effect you put on the ball, it comes back at you with twice the effect. So they were losing against their own spins. They were losing against the beauty of their own game.
Bergman lost to Sato. And then everybody's eyes opened up, to what was happening out there. I won the first game against Sato, and I thought I really had it in the bag. And then I started to adopt a wrong strategy. Sato regained his confidence against me. Sato, every now and then, with an imperceptible twist of the wrist, was able to produce an uncanny amount of spin where the ball would just slide off your racket and go into the bottom of the net.
And it's not as if he were playing well. He just stood there, let the ball hit the racket, and it came back at you in a way that no one had ever seen before.
I was not being very bright. For a guy supposed to be a New York shark, a money play who could spot a con job a town away, and here I was being conned by somebody less than 10 feet from me. What Sato was doing, of course, what I was too dense to see, was setting up my smash shot when he was ready to return it, not when I was ready to hit it. Once again, he had me arm wrestling with myself. He was turning my power into his power. He beat me the next 3 games. After that match, I was devastated that I had not won the World Championship.
Hiroji Sato of Japan, who has not lost a single match since his arrival in Bombay, created history by becoming the men's singles champion of the world in his very first attempt. He won in 3 straight games against Joseph Kosyan of Hungary.
He was more surprised than anyone else when he found himself the world singles champion. And he was received by 1 million people, they say, who lined the streets of Tokyo to greet back their first world champion, not only in table tennis, but in any athletic sport ever.
But of course, it was not about the player, it was about the racket, so that when other people began to master the racket, he wasn't even good at it. He just was the inventor of the racket. You know.
The racket became so thoroughly embedded in the game. There was a tremendous demand for this paddle all over the world, and the manufacturers found themselves in a game that had now blossomed into a multi-million-dollar industry, which heretofore was a penny ante equipment sport.
Every day, a new spongiform fantasy was coming in from the ocean beds and rubber plantations of the East. A thicker, softer, more silent and more deadly foam, a more deviously flexuous pimple, sandwich with the sponge outside and the pimples in, sandwich with the sponge inside and the pimples out, sandwich with the sponge inside and the pimples out, but introverted. A pimple which you couldn't see. What devils they were out there in China and Japan.
Well, the hard batters call it the Antichrist. But really it represents a technological milestone in the sport, and so I would like to be able to share it with the fans. You know, we have a lot of people pointing at the rackets in this particular case, and that's always a sign of an interesting exhibit. You know.
My career was really cut short with the advent of the sponge racket. The door opened wide, you see, to a huge range of players, many less gifted than the players of the day. Players that in former days I could give 6, 7, 8 points to. Suddenly I had no chance against them. What I experienced, why I never used it again, even though I was successful in using it, I didn't have the sense of a struggle out there. I got through with the match, and first time ever in a championship match, I wasn't covered with perspiration, like I was really involved in a gladiatorial kind of struggle. You know, I wanted to feel like a gladiator out there, really doing, hand-to-hand combat with my opponent. There's no such thing. I was far removed from my opponent. I was far removed from the ball. Didn't feel the ball, didn't like what it did to my opponent, and so I never used that racket again.
In the end, it was probably the sound that made the difference. We could no longer, with any onomatopoeic justification, say that we played ping-pong. Just as everything else in the world was growing noisier, our game had fallen quiet.
From 1950s to 1960s, Japanese was dominating in table tennis. Afterwards, Chinese started to dominate until now for over 40 years. The starting time was 1959 when the first men's singles champion we won, Mr. Ren Guotuan.
Along with the sponge bat came the penhold grip. It is still astounding to me that anyone can make things happen with that, but they do amazing things with that grip, and they can create effects impossible with the shaking hand.
The Chinese way call penhold, hold like this. But I think people are so familiar with the Chinese food, it seems like chopsticks when you hold that. European players, they hold like a shake hand. I play like this. This is like when you eat food. use a fork and a knife, yeah, to cut something.
Because it was an autocracy out there, the decision by Chairman Mao to institute table tennis as a national sport of China, everybody started playing table tennis. And given the population of China, it was a statistical inevitability that they would come to dominate table tennis from the 1950s onwards. I don't think there's any doubt that Mao saw table tennis as a potential symbol of Chinese virility, and the success of the China team fed into a feeling of patriotic fervour amongst the masses.
Not only Chairman Mao encouraged people in sports, but people want to fight. We want to show our confidence, our physically and mentally strong. It's the great country in the world.
Mao may have had, a kind of Fu Manchu or diabolic intention about becoming the great ping pong players of the world, but that wouldn't have mattered if you did not have 10 million registered players in the country. I mean, that's incredible.
My father became a coach in table tennis. So when I was really little, or like a baby that time, my father told me go to the training center. So from that time, I'm really familiar with the table tennis. When I was 5, I asked my father, can I start to play? Can I play table tennis? The table, because very high, I'm very short. And then only the head over the table, so that time he told me, you have to become world champion, set the goal in the future to win the glory for my motherland. Yeah.
发力的时候，这个脚再用力，这右脚。
Premier Zhou Enlai moves forward to greet the first American president to set foot on Chinese soil. East meets West as a handshake bridges 16,000 miles and 22 years of hostility.
Many people know about the ping pong diplomacy, but I'm not so sure that many people are aware as to how it actually got started. We, the United States team, we were in Nagoya, Japan, playing at the World's Table Tennis Championships. And this was the first time in 6 years that the Chinese team was participating. 6 years prior to that, they were involved in their Cultural Revolution, so they were not present during those years.
Glenn Cowan, who's a hippie opportunist, you might say, with a tie-dye leopard skin pants and the Let It Be shirt and the long hair. He's practicing with an English player, Trevor Taylor, and Taylor leaves and Cowan then leaves, but there's no bus for Cowan. So the way Glenn tells it to me is that a Chinese signals him to come on their bus. So he begins talking about how, I'm a kind of hippie, I'm sort of a revolutionist like you are, or whatever. Pretty soon, Zhuang Zedong from the back of the bus gets up and gives him this, a silk screen or piece of tapestry, whatever.
And before you know it, the Chinese extended the invitation to us to come to China on a goodwill tour.
It was such a shock to us to be invited because we knew these were Reds, these were commies, and we're the U.S.
We can see that China is the basic cause of all of our troubles in Asia. If China had not gone communist, we would not have had a war in Korea. If China were not communist, there would be no war in Indochina.
So, how is it possible that this Cold War barrier could suddenly be broken and we're all friends?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity to go to China because not very many people get there, and I feel it's a great opportunity to play against the top players and be able to take some of this knowledge home, and I think it's also a step in our political relations with China.
The press went absolutely bananas. You never saw so much attention in your life. They followed us around.
The trip to China began here at Hong Kong Station, where the American team boarded a train for the 20-mile ride to the frontier. There is a great deal which is diplomatic. The first time Communist China has invited any American group to visit.
One reporter had a really good idea. He wanted Cowan to lag behind the others. And just as he's going into China, they wanted him to turn around and wave. Would he come back? And the first thing we see is Big Brother. We see this 3-story picture of Mao, right? Which you don't see at home. They all wore often blue and green tunics, pretty much the same.
Everyone, it seems to be like in unity. All the bicycles that were being ridden.
They're guarded. Like, you even ask them an innocuous question like, which city do you prefer in Shanghai and in China? I like all cities in China. While we were in China, we were really given lots of freedom. You would see evidence of hostility between the US and the Chinese. Down with the imperialists and all their running dogs, or something like that.
We played some exhibition matches. I played 3 exhibition matches. I won 2 and lost 1. And I need a rematch with that guy, actually. He's much older now, I'm sure.
They also were very big on friendship first, competition second. And so they would bring not only a single match close, but they would bring many matches close in the overall final score. That is, they would lose matches.
They were able to keep the ball going so that we could look good and make a good exhibition out of the whole thing. And they were very good goodwill ambassadors themselves.
We were wined and dined. No Ming emperor ever ate better. And we did see a Chinese opera, revolutionary kind of opera. They put on the most fantastic acrobatic fighting for like 15 minutes. It looked to me like they got real swords. They're tumbling about. I swear to God, it looked to me like somebody was going to get killed. It was so real.
It's a great occasion. A week in China by an American table tennis team
and it may have changed the whole international atmosphere. Here they come with their souvenirs and their memories of a long tour and friendly Chinese faces.
We were very well treated. They were warm, gracious, friendly people. Everywhere we went, we were greeted with hand claps, smiles, and in the most friendly manner.
When I got back home, I was just amazed at the publicity. They had been following us every day, this really second to the death of Kennedy. It prepared people for suddenly getting chummy with the Reds.
Good evening. As I have pointed out on a number of occasions over the past 3 years, there can be no stable and enduring peace without the participation of the People's Republic of China and its 750 million people. The announcement I shall now read is being issued simultaneously in Peking and in the United States. Premier Chou En-lai, on behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, has extended an invitation to President Nixon to visit China at an appropriate date before May 1972. President Nixon has accepted the invitation with pleasure.
I don't believe Nixon could have gone to China without that opening of the ping-pong diplomacy. It was very good for the Chinese. It opened them up. It allowed people to come into China, and what better way to open up China than through ping-pong, where they were the masters. So they had nothing to lose. For the United States, it was a great coup for Kissinger and Nixon to be able to sort of enter into sort of the Forbidden City. So everyone benefited from that. And it softened the kind of terrible rhetoric of tension, you know.
The two governments, United States and China, they were having talks years prior to that trip. But I always say that in many instances where governments have failed, sports have succeeded. And through sports, in this case ping pong being the happy medium, we were able to establish better relations between the two countries.
Modern table tennis is about trying to win the point as quickly as possible, and with the modern technology, the speed of these bats is considerable.
This is Andrzej Gruber all-round plus blade. This is one of our most popular blades. So this is, for example, Striver rubbers. It's probably the best sold rubber in the world. You can vary the thickness of the sponge, which of course controls the speed. There's also speed glue, which is used for speed gluing.
The bat is a kind of weapon, and you can tear off the rubber and put glue, sort of a layer of glue underneath. And the more often you do that, the faster the ball is going to hit.
So over here in this corner we have the short and long pimpled rubbers.
So you constantly see people re-gluing their rackets.
Challenger attack, wheel-up attack.
And after a while you had to have a gluing room because they stank up a whole stadium.
Techiness chop, techiness drive. From the name techiness, you can guess what is the main characteristic.
In high-tempo exchanges, you can hit the ball up to 6 times in a single second. When Gareth goes for broke, I would have less than 600ths of a second in which to react. Everybody with serious intentions to be a good player will be an attacking player. That's to say that their methodology is to try and win the point as quickly as possible. And the average duration of a table tennis point has dipped considerably over time because of the influence of technology.
We talk about the 3-ball kill. You serve. You serve with such devilish cunning and with your bat imparting so many inexplicable spins that the next player does very well to get it over the net. But he'll get it over the net where you want him to get it over the net, and you put paid to it. That's the end. Finito.
So the idea is to put in a difficult serve, to get a weak return, and then to play an explosive forehand winner, a bit like this. Doesn't matter, does it really?
Wonderful if you could do it. Wonderful if you're the server and you can do that. No good at all for anyone watching the game. Bit by bit, there disappeared from my game, and indeed from the game in general, everything I'd originally loved about it. No more retrieving from the back of the room, no more coddling the ball and making it yours, no more giving it so much dig you could hear it changing its mind in midair. Thanks to science, in a few short years, the game had gone forwards only to go backwards.
Sponge has brought something new to table tennis, and something that is interesting, something that distinguishes it from other sports, and that's beneficial. But the critics are right to point out that the sponge, in combination with speed glue, has shortened the rallies in a way that has been detrimental to the spectacle.
In the famous golden age of the 1930s and 40s, there were lots of different styles, whereas now people feel that the players are almost robotic. I said this to Zhuang Zedong, the great Chinese player, and he said, "It only looks that way."
If you have an autocratic sporting system, you can impose burdens on the players that would be unacceptable in a liberal democracy. Taking children from a very young age from their homes and having a provincial system of clubs funneling through to the national centre in Beijing. And that is undoubtedly part of the strength of China, unquestionably. And they have almost a machine-like ability to churn out top players over and over and over again.
In total, I won 18 world titles, 4 Olympic gold medals in 92 and 96, both in singles and doubles. And then I kept the #1 for children in the future. I want let them to play in table tennis because it's so hard.
We are out of it. Apart from occasionally we have thrown up, particularly the Germans and the Swedes have thrown them up, particularly the Swedes, and in Waldner they threw up probably the only European who recently has been able to hold his own and beat the Chinese. He's done it really by marrying the two games. He's learned how to master the modern technology, to stay up close to the table, to half volley, to return the ball without even doing a shot. But he also possesses some of the slightly more languorous European shots.
The game goes from the ridiculous to the sublime, and most of the time it's on the ridiculous. Maybe 10% of the time it's sublime. They're doing incredible things like Waldner, very gifted player, and yet I'm sure that he plays matches against an opponent where his opponent is not conducive to his style, and it's going to be a dull and boring match.
It's hard for me to believe that the game will recapture the romance it had. The drama, in some basic way, is gone. It moved from an art to a science. And so probably it will be a match a game that's celebrated in all of Asia. It's the most popular sport in Asia. But let's say in the West, unless a great or young great player comes in who can beat the Chinese and beat them handily, I don't think it will recapture its spirit.
There is no such thing as an ex-ping pong player. Years after your last game, you go on wondering why you lost or why you couldn't have won more comfortably. You are never free, no, not even in your grave. As your flesh rots around you in the blackness, you will still be trying to hit the ball past an opponent you cannot see. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years of striving, and still, through the silent night, the ball coming back.
Je t'envoie mon cœur à coups de raquette, mais tu le rejettes.
Holding court next, Hannah Fry and a virtual host bring you telly as you've never seen it before, made by machine, when AI met the archive, part of AI TV season here on BBC 4.1.
That's the classic backhand draw. How does that look? Good? You mean I can still play? I can play.